Education. Today, we are joined by Jeff Sparr. He's the CEO and co-founder of PeaceLove. Jeff's 27 years of devotion to promoting mental health awareness and the life-changing effects of creativity have earned him worldwide recognition as a visionary in this space. As a highly regarded global thought leader and former Buckeye, Jeff has dedicated his life to creating a positive impact on society and helping to break down the stigma surrounding mental health. His passion and unique perspective have inspired individuals around the world to prioritize their mental well-being while harnessing the transformative power of creativity. With further ado, please help me welcome Jeff to today.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you for the kind words. And super excited to join you today. As I told you offline, Ohio State is a big part of my life, a big part of my journey. And I know I've had the opportunity to speak at a bunch of different other formats, but I love your format because it's all about how you respond to adversity in life. So I love your forum and super thankful to both you and to my friend Bern Melnick, and Megan Amaya. I've always appreciated your guys' vision to make mental health, not only of your students, but your community important. So glad to be with you.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff, if you don't mind kind of talking about your story and kind of what brought you here to this space.
Yes, I'll share a little bit of my backstory, and I share it, only because the stories are the story, and I think my story is important in that I could be anybody, similar to the cause I've dedicated my life to. So let me take you back. I'm 19 years old at Ohio State, and they're on a tennis scholarship, and basically living out my dream of playing Division I sports. And unbeknownst to me, gradually, my mind was being overtaken by these terrible, intrusive thoughts, and I thought I was losing my mind, and I didn't know what was happening, and I was scared, obviously, alone, but I think equally. There was no one to talk to. I couldn't talk to my teammates. Some of them might be on there. What would I say? They'd think I was nuts anyways, and couldn't talk to my parents. What would I burden them with that. My coach probably benched me. No mental health services available in those days, even at a place like Ohio State. So I sucked it up and got worse. Not a good prescription to get better. So as got into my senior year, my symptoms started to get worse, and I didn't know what was going on with me. I came home after college, and by the time I was, I think, 23, basically, I thought I was going crazy and thinking to myself, this is no way to live your life. So I found the courage and made my way to a psychiatric hospital. I was diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know, people probably know it. It's a very popular illness these days on television and the movies, but I think misunderstood. Most people think of it as a repeating illness and, touching the stove or the carb. For me, it comes in the form of, terrible, thoughts that, take over your mind, and that you're, powerless to really fight. And it forces me into mental repetitions to try to ease that pain, and basically going spot to spot in different areas, and your mind is overtaken, and you basically lose access to your mind. But again, I share my story because I'm one of the lucky ones. I got diagnosed, and with a diagnosis came an opportunity to get better, and through medication, exposure therapy, loving family, and support network, been able to have a wonderful life. But the rest of my life story you can't make up. I'm coming home from work one day, and somebody told me that painting might be good for me. I had never painted a day in my life, but when you're desperate, you know what you'll try, anything. So I stopped at the art supply store, picked up some art supplies, and you're looking at the Forrest Gump of painting. Basically, I never stopped, and creativity literally changed the course of my life. It gave me a sense of control that I think all mental illnesses, rob you of. It was like I found a new language that I could communicate, through my image, things that I maybe couldn't say or find words to. provided me certainly some peace of mind, even if it was for a short amount of time while I was creating, which was, invigorating to my own soul. And I think the other thing that it certainly did, it provided me a vehicle to be able to start getting better. So with that, I had the simple idea: if it was good for me, maybe it would be good for somebody else. And I went in home one day and decided that I would take all the wonderful ingredients that were helping me, whether it be fun, creativity, the immediacy of being able to create, and created an art program. I had no qualifications other than the will to do it. Showed up at a hospital one day that not only was I a board member of, but I was a patient. And I remember like yesterday, right? Walking through that hospital with a bag over my shoulder of art supplies. I look like a cross between Santa Claus and a robber. Got onto children's psychiatric unit and was scared. I had no qualifications. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a therapist. I wasn't a social worker. I was just a guy who wanted to help. So I went to Plan B real quick and told these kids my story and prompted them on a question: what gave them peace of mind, and asked them to create and share that. And very quickly realized I had stumbled on something that was very powerful, as these children, lives were transforming in front of me, and their parents, the doctors, the therapists, and knew that I had helped them find a new way to communicate, a language. Kids were laughing. They were celebrating. They were cheering each other on. Not things that are typically associated with mental health in a hospital. So I'm a kind of an emotional guy, wearing on my shoulders. And I remember going to my car that night and kind of crying and thinking to myself, maybe I had stumbled on something. So I figured I went to someone, told them what I had discovered. A friend of mine, maybe somebody on this line today, said, maybe you should try cloning yourself, Jeff. Then you can help a lot more people. But nobody wants me cloned. So I went to the next best thing. I showed up at CVS boardroom, which is located here in Rhode Island, and pitched them on an idea called Creators, where we would train and equip frontline professionals to learn what we were doing, these expressive arts, types of, experiences. And they said, yes, it worked. And 6 years later, we've impacted over 100,000 people. We've got 350 of these people spread out all over the country and abroad. And we actually have been in the process over the last few years now of digitizing, our game and our experience. And in partnership with Amazon and AWS, we'll shortly be launching a game that will be available to millions of people to help them, try to find some peace of mind. So it's been quite a journey, but I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, it definitely kind of goes to that idea of finding that silver lining in that time of stress for yourself. You talked about a little bit about your power of sharing your story. Do you mind kind of elaborating more on what power sharing your story to millions of Americans have done for you, and spreading this idea of creative wellness to the community?
Yeah, I mean, if someone would have told me that it could have had this kind of impact simply by sharing, I would have thought that was impossible. But it might be one of the simplest things that we can do. But it's powerful, and two people to be able to share and let other people know that they're not with them. Our programming has been developed over these years to provide a conduit to do just that. I've often called it, Josh, the Trojan horse, if you will. We get people talking about it. They don't even know they're talking about it. I think, people want to share. They don't want to be alone. But unfortunately, we live in a world that there's a lot of stigma. And, I've always thought that the mental health and the stigma surrounding it is maybe one of the last great social injustices that our world has yet to be able to tackle. And my answer has always been the same, and invisible, misunderstood, and difficult to talk about is a tough combination. So, I usually would say I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I got to be careful. I'm an Ohio State guy, so yeah, I am part of the smartest people in the world. So my simple, solution was you could have the best solution in the world. If you can't get it to people, you can't help them.
Mm.
So, that was always the goal. Could we take creativity and use it as a conduit to allow people to share their stories in a safe and celebratory way, and get it to people? And that's been the charge for so many years. It seems simple, but at the end of the day, that it's a very powerful formula.
Mm. You talked about, working in various populations. What other benefits have you found with engaging in creative wellness, not just from the creative or in not just the creative aspect, but in the mental? But what other areas have you found that this has been able to be impactful on an individual?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one that comes to mind is just the notion of connection
Mm.
to people, and building community. I
Yeah.
think that just the act of sharing allows us to open up and relate to people, and it's an incredible thing to see. I mean, I've been doing this. I've facilitated myself, thousands of programs over 15 years that we've been doing this, and it's always mind-boggling, right? That I can spend 45 minutes with somebody and or any of our creators out there, and people will share things that they've never shared with anybody, their loved ones, their significant others. And so how can that happen? How
Mhm.
can somebody open up and share? And the reason it happens, there's no judgment. We create an environment in a community where people can just be, and it's a wonderful way to live life. And because we all can use a buddy in this day and age, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone were to, take that first step into engaging into the creative domain, what would be some of your recommendations to take this form of art and dealing with some of their own stressors in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, look, my first answer was, I'm in front of you today. Creativity. I'm living proof of how it can change somebody's life,
Mhm.
and but it's something that that you've got to be willing to do. And it's the most often asked question, Josh, that I'm asked as I travel. Right? People will ask, what can I do? And I always say, focus on what you can control versus what you can't control. And I think one of the things for people listening out there, creativity is something that you can do. Before most people wake up every day, I've worked out, I've done some yoga, I've meditated, I've journaled, I've created. These are all things that I can do. I mean, I can't control my illness, but I choose to focus on what I can control. So I would tell people to focus on those things, and don't be scared to try. You know, to this day, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing, and it literally changed my life.
Had a question come through. What kinds of mediums do you use in your own work, and what would be an easy medium or entry level medium for folks wanting to get into this?
Great question. Thank you for asking it. I mean, I paint. Fortunately, if I had sang, we wouldn't be here today. But my own medium, I use everything from acrylics, pencils, oil pastels. I paint on anything I get my hands on, any medium. But the other question's a good one, and I would encourage people, especially when I'm with youth, and I know there's a lot of students out there, hopefully, that are listening. Um, my most relaxing, and I think my funnest medium to work in is with a pad and a pencil, because it's immediate, it's instantaneous, it's spontaneous, and I can get to it anytime. So I would encourage people, go out and get a pad and get a pencil, and you're on your way. People have a misconception of art and creativity, that they have to have all these supplies, and it can be as simple as just taking out a pad and pen.
Beautiful. Um, I know that we have about 15-ish minutes. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box there or in the Q&A. Either or is fine. But Jeff, doing something a little bit different here. I know we are virtual. We're tuning in via a webinar, but I was wondering if you would be able to kind of walk through something with our group, and maybe if they're able to share via social media with yourself or with Buckeye Wellness, looking at maybe what can we do within a 10-minute time frame to engage in the creative domain, and improve our overall mental and physical and spiritual health from there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, this whole thing started with one simple prompt, and walking in a hospital is what gives you peace of mind.
Mhm.
And that would be, what one of my advices to people as well is, don't take it for granted. For people like myself and others that battle, it's not the big things, Josh, in life. It's the little things. And if you ask me what gives me peace of mind, my answers will surprise you. It'll be, hitting golf balls with my son, maybe being in the batting cage with my other son, creating with my daughter, sitting around my wife, reading the paper, watching Netflix without these obtrusive thoughts running around in my mind. So I would say to your people out there, what gives you peace of mind? And maybe in your own way, try to write that down, maybe draw it, maybe sketch it, poem, rap, anything, you know.
So we give a challenge to those that are tuning in now, whether it's virtual or live or watching the YouTube. Take that prompt and come up with something creative for yourself, and feel free to share with Buckeye Wellness. You can email that to us or hit us up on social media. I had another question come through talking about getting into some of these programs and areas. Question was, how did you go about being allowed to start your program in the hospital or anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, well, to answer the question, I just showed up. That was the first thing I did, and I've been non-traditional in the beginning, and maybe that's part of the reason for our success. A lot of the typical, parameters for the reasons that something won't work. I said, why not? And let's do it. So that showing up was one of them, and then the other was being able to create a program that we could go in and actually duplicate and train people. Our technique, Josh, has always been to try to train and equip frontline professionals that are already in these communities. Today, we work virtually in every community from 3 to 93 in the country, whether it be behavioral health, high schools, colleges, the I'm sorry, the correctional institutes, elderlies, everybody needs what we have. So we try to train those people because they know their communities. Even we're doing work at Ohio State right now, and we're training your people to be able to work with the students in different communities, because they know they know their population better than we do.
Beautiful. That actually came up for those that are wanting to get involved. I can share Jeff's information at the end via email from there. Someone asked a question here. Does PeaceLove have programs, exercise classes for mental health care?
In Columbus?
I believe yes.
Well, yes, we have a host of trained creators that are out in Columbus, and a bunch are in the incarcerated populations there. I know we have a couple at Ohio State, but again, that has been our tact in training people so that they have to be part of a community today to be able to get that. We're hoping to address that issue, as you can imagine, with the invent of our digital game, so that anybody can have access at any time, through that.
Yeah. If you don't mind kind of talking about the support that those in your network receive during your care. We know that when it comes to mental health, not just impacts the individual, but it impacts the others around them. So what support systems for people in those lives that are impacted with mental health are available?
Yeah, good question, and it's a two-part answer. I mean, when we started, I think we knew, because we had done this for so long, the impact it would have on the actual participants.
Mhm.
Our programming. What we didn't anticipate was the impact it would have on the people that we were training. And today we've got I said 350 of those people around the country, and they're all in ambassadors and apostles for helping people in so many different ways, and through each of them have built their own community and people to support. And a lot of the experiences and workshops that people go to, I mean, that's just the entry point. And we've always thought of our experiences as just that. We're not going to solve everybody's mental health and mental wellness issues in the course of a workshop or experience, but it brings people in the front door, and in a safe way to maybe address the issue, talk about it, and find their way maybe to some of the other resources that could be helpful to them in so many different ways.
Beautiful. Like I said, we've for those that still have questions, feel free to utilize the Q&A function or the chat box. We're nearing time here, but looking at what you have created with PeaceLove and other adventures, what has been your favorite takeaway with everything that you've done in promoting and breaking down the stigmas around mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson I would tell people, and I think I'm living proof of how it can morph over the years. I mean, I didn't go to Ohio State or school for what I do today. I would tell people to try to find their bullseye. And when I say, find your bullseye, let me explain, if I can, in real time. This is about, I want to say maybe 7, 8 years ago. The Discovery Channel was doing a documentary on mental illness, and they were looking for a face to tell the story. And as you can imagine, everybody wants a star in that movie. So, I raised my hand, and they came to Rhode Island and they filmed for 3 or 4 days, because I understood the importance it was to try to put a face on mental health. And we gave them complete access to our family for a few days. And the piece aired, 3 months later. And as you can imagine, I was a little concerned as to, how I would be portrayed, but it wasn't TMZ. So I wasn't too concerned, but, I watched it, and the first time, and breathed a sigh of relief, but it was the third or fourth time that I watched it. And I literally was looking at this documentary, and I said, geez, I want to be that guy. You know, I said, that guy, he's cool, he's calm, collective, maybe a little inspirational, not bad looking. I said, why can't I be that guy? And I remember going to my dad, and parents can be a wonderful source of inspiration. Please tell my kids if they're listening. And I went to my dad, and keep in mind, I was running his business at the time. And he said, son, I don't have the answer for you, because nobody has the answer, but you got to find what you can do better than anybody else. And didn't have that answer. I went into my studio, and I was creating, and picture this, if you will. I had a bullseye, and I figured on the outside of the bullseye, I was a kind of an empathetic, father, son, brother. That bullseye got a little smaller. I was a self-taught artist. Unless you know the power of art, I don't think you can really understand. It got a little smaller. I had become a mentor, and I was teaching. I had no qualifications. My life was changing. Smaller. I was someone that suffered from mental illness. And then I said, for whatever the set of circumstances, there was the bullseye. Maybe I was someone, uniquely, qualified to articulate and communicate this message, a hope and acceptance on mental health. The point of the story is, my qualifications to do that were nothing that I would have thought. So I encourage people, to embrace it. You never know when you're going to find it, or in what form it's going to come to you, but each and every one of us has that opportunity, I think, to make a difference in the world. Whether we think we can or not, you can. And listen to your heart, and follow your passions. It'll serve you well.
Beautiful. Had a question come through here. What's the difference from your perspective between art therapy done by an art therapist and what you all do with PeaceLove?
Yeah, great question. What we do is expressive art, so it has nothing to do with the interpretation of it. It's simply the act of doing and experiencing and the process that goes with it. So it's something anybody can do, and it's something that's very scalable because of that. So
Beautiful. If anyone has any last questions, feel free to utilize the chat function as well in the Q&A there. For the students that are involved, that are on the call, what lessons learned would you provide them as they venture through school and dealing with many of the challenges that they face today, utilizing creative wellness or other ways of breaking down those stigmas?
yeah, I mean, again, I would encourage them to focus on what they can control versus what they can't. Even little small things might not seem significant, but when you put them together, it could be the formulation of a plan. And the other thing I would say to them, don't be scared to dream big. I mean, how poetic that I went to the biggest school and that we're part of the biggest, perhaps, academic community in the world. There's a lot of power in dreaming big. Anything is possible. So don't be limited by that.
Beautiful. As we round out our time here, Jeff, how can someone get involved with PeaceLove here at the university? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, obviously, in perhaps you can share on your guys' end. I know that we do have some trained creators that are at the campus. Please share my email with anybody. Selfishly, it's with great pride that as an ex-athlete, an ex-student, that we embrace the university and the community in any possible way we can. And you can imagine the pride that I have as I travel, around the country and the world, and brag about my own university and their vision to understand the importance of mental health of our entire community. So we'd love to have anybody involved in any capacity that they'd be interested. And it can be as simple as just sending me an email and reaching out. We've got great people between yourself and Megan and Bern Melnick, who's just such a visionary in this world for mental health. I think we've got a good team.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today and being an ambassador in this space, not only for the university, but for breaking down a lot of those stigmas regarding mental health. For those that are on the call, thank you so much for tuning in today. As you exit, there will be a short little evaluation, and I highly recommend that you provide feedback regarding today and in future sessions. We will have a short story, a silver lining story that will drop in February. We will actually be featuring Dr. Bernadette Melnick and her story and how she's overcome those mental health adversities from there. And then our last live seminar will be in March, featuring Dr. Rustin Moore. For those that are still with us, have a safe and happy Tuesday. To Jeff, go Buckeyes, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.